here today. My name is Henry Skey. Of course, I will be your webinar guide for the Marketing Plan 8, Medicare Supplement Coverage. I see a lot of new names in the list as well as some familiar names. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining me here today. The Marketing Plan webinars typically take around 15 minutes or so, a little shorter than the other ones. The idea being that it's not a lot of fluff, a lot of meat. And basically what I've done is I've gone in and listened to about 2 or 3 hours worth of Medicare supplement coverage calls, the good ones, the bad ones, and for the majority of them, the confusing ones, in an attempt to let you know exactly what kind of calls are going to convert and what kind of calls are not going to convert, what to avoid, what to do in efforts that you can, obviously make more money on your end and try this great campaign out. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, so we'll start with the fundamentals. Now, one of the things that I'm at a disadvantage of is being Canadian. I don't know what Medicare is, or at least I didn't know what Medicare was before the campaign launched. So I'm not going to go into some big spiel about Medicare because most of you are American, looks like. Some of you are outside. So for the benefit of those, Medicare is essentially a federal program that helps people over the ages of 65 basically have access to healthcare. So access to hospital visits. It covers majority of the costs of doctor visits, hospital visits, x-rays, things like that. The idea being, though, is that depending on, and by the way, guys, this will sort of be a common theme, there are quite a few what's the word I'm looking for? Not examples, exceptions. There's going to be, a lot of sort of minute details. So if you catch me saying something about Medicare, I don't want you messaging me being like, Henry, you're talking about Medicare Part D, Section 2, not Medicare Section 3, Part 1. You're probably totally right. I'm just going to try and lay down the fundamentals, guys. The devil's in the details. I understand that, and that's going to be on you to promote the campaign. So forgive me if I sound a little ignorant, but I am Canadian. Anyway, beyond that, that's what it is. And the majority of these programs only cover 80% of the cost. And then it's up to the remaining party, or the person rather, wanting to cover their costs to get the rest of the 20%. And Medicare Supplement Coverage is basically a premium they're going to pay monthly in order to cover those costs. And that can range from vision to dental to drugs, and that's usually what people are calling in about. So that kind of makes sense. American citizens pay into Medicare for a long time. Once they hit the age of 65, they will have access to it. It's a massive deal. There's something like 50 million, I think, citizens close to or over the age of 65 in the United States. It also covers disabilities, those with certain disabilities, but I won't go into that because we're just going to focus mostly on the senior market. So keep that in mind. It's basically healthcare for the older citizens. It covers most but not all. So some people will choose to get programs that will help them supplement the coverage, hence the Medicare Supplement Coverage campaign. Make sense? Clear as mud? Perfect. Let's keep going. The hours, and just to sort of keep on the train of this being a complex campaign, the hours vary greatly. So we have coverage from Monday to Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. All these times, of course, are in Eastern Standard Time. Thursday to Friday are 24 hours a day. We do have weekend hours as well. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Sunday, 12:30 to 8:30. I challenge you to find a campaign on our exchange with more varied or different hours, because that's about as different as you can get. So that does make it a little challenging. That being said, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. and then 24/7 Thursday, Friday, those are better hours than a majority of the campaigns you're going to find on our network that aren't 24 hours, across the board. So not too bad. And hey, weekend hours, we always like weekend traffic, guys. Weekend traffic has been growing like crazy lately. I don't know about you guys, but I always like to do, my weekend errands, phone in for us, we're moving soon, Kyla and I, so I had to phone BC Hydro, and, I prefer doing that on the weekend. You have some time, they're usually open. Of course, everybody else wants to phone in on the weekend, so you might have to be, waiting on hold for a while, but I digress. Let's keep going. We've almost got nationwide coverage. We've got 45 states, so just make sure you look at that. And one thing I will mention is a lot of the calls I heard, coverage really matters. And by that, I mean people would sort of give their address, and if they're in the middle of nowhere or if they're in a really tiny town, the Medicare Supplement Coverage program they want might not be covered in their area, which sounds a little confusing, but basically what it means is that these calls are going to go to a brokerage, a broker, and they specialize in selling Medicare Supplement Coverage programs. So they're not calling Medicare. They're not calling the government. And that's one thing that you should definitely keep in mind, is that the biggest opponent of the success of this campaign will be confusion. You've got a program or an offer that's not like plumbing or electricians, right? Which is pretty dead easy to figure out why somebody would want to call in. You've got a complex program with a lot of steps. Combine that with the fact that you've got a population calling in that generally are not all that tech savvy compared to the rest of the population. They don't go online as much, and they're easily confused. They're older. They need help. So keep in mind, you don't want to mislead them. Probably one of the most frequent calls I got, or the calls I listened to that didn't convert, pure confusion. Either in the IVR or once they got out of the IVR, they thought they were calling the government or they thought they were calling Medicaid. It's quite a mess, to be honest. There's a lot of calls that don't convert, and that's why I'm here. I'm trying to remove confusion, just like you're going to remove confusion for the potential callers. Now, that being said, if somebody calls in and they say, oh, I want help with my vision, right? They want a Medicare supplement program to help them with vision only, not dental, not drugs, vision. It's possible that the brokerage they call into will say, well, you're in, Cedar Hills, Michigan. Unfortunately, we don't have coverage in that area. Because what that means, and I know that sounds a little confusing, but what that means is that a lot of these supplemental coverages like drugs, dental, and vision means they have to be in proximity of, pharmacies or eye doctors or dentists. And the coverage doesn't, sort of blanket all 45 states. So I would really, really recommend targeting populous areas. Try and do towns. I know sort of the golden rule is target towns of at least 20,000. That's generally going to be the size where you're going to find common services, like dentists, like eye doctors, oh my goodness, I can't say it, optician. I'm going to be so bad. My optician, no, it's not the right word. Sorry. I'm going to keep going with eye doctor, guys. Sorry, just brain fart, can't think of the name. So yeah, keep that in mind. I know it's a little weird thinking about that, but hopefully for a lot of you that does make sense, as you are, many of you are American and understand that system. Although I know we do have a few Canadians in the webinar as well. So hopefully they're learning just as much as I am. The duration, now the benefit of this campaign is once you remove the initial confusion and you get them connected, 2 minutes is a drop in the bucket. That is not a long duration when it comes to Medicare supplement coverage. I listened to one call, or I didn't listen to the whole thing, but one call we had the other day was 2 hours long, right? So these are going to be long. The ones that actually connect are usually going to last a very, very long time. So don't let the 2-minute duration scare you. I think auto insurance is a little bit longer than that. But basically, if they press 1 or press 2, you're going to get $18. And as always, guys, if I can emphasize this enough, I'll be happy. I don't think I can emphasize this enough is what I'm trying to get at. Sorry, guys, I'm not as witty as I normally am today, or as I normally, yeah, well, see, there you go. There's a prime example. Let us know what rate you need to make the campaign work. Guys, I don't receive enough emails like this. If you want to run a campaign, beyond Medicare supplement, forget Medicare supplement coverage for just a second. If you see a campaign that's $8 and you'll say, no way, I'm not running that at $8. I need at least $9.50. I get, 10 at this other exchange. Please let me know. I want to know this so we can try and match the rate or beat it. Don't let that be a deterrent. We're very, very eager to work with you guys. We want to make sure we give you competitive rates. So if you say to me, Henry, I can't make Medicare supplement coverage work at 18, but I can definitely make it work or give it a test at 19 or 19.25, can we do this? And I will do my best to make sure that we can do at least a test. Keep that in mind. All right, here we go. That's enough on slide 1. Slide 2. Okay, so targeting. Here's how the IVR works. It says, thank you for calling. If you currently have Medicare coverage and are looking for supplemental coverage, please press 1. If you want Medicare and are over the age of 65, press 2. Oh, sorry, guys, there's a little bit of an error in there. It should say press 2 if you're over the age of 65. Any other inquiries, press 3. 1 and 2 will connect. Any other inquiries, press 3 will disconnect because, of course, we are looking for new customers. We don't want people just sort of calling in for, for information, or to talk about the weather. We want people that are motivated to either get Medicare, maybe they just turned 65, or maybe they have Medicare and they want that supplemental coverage to make sure that all their drugs or their vision or their dental or what have you are going to be covered. And the agents will go over specific plans. I won't be able to give you guys specific prices, and I know that's really tough. I would say, I'm going to go into this a little bit later on, but I would say the most successful partners with this campaign are going to be able to summarize a large amount of information very concisely and clearly, and assure the person calling in that they're going to speak to a licensed agent who can answer all their questions. I wouldn't have an encyclopedia or a Wikipedia articles worth of information on there. You're just going to confuse people, and me, people, like me, probably don't want to read for an hour before you call a number, right? You just want to talk to somebody so they can walk you through it. So something definitely to keep in mind. You want to, as I mentioned before, you want to prime the callers. You want to prime the callers so that they're not as confused when they call in, because let me tell you guys, listening to these calls, they are already very confused. So I did mention earlier that Medicare does cover, I think, around 9 million Americans with disabilities. However, this campaign, we're focusing more on seniors, so make sure you target appropriately. Probably not a big deal if somebody with a disability who's under the age of 65 calls in, but that's not quite what we're looking for. So definitely keep that in mind. I already mentioned quite a large number of Americans are over the age of 65 and on Medicare. I think it's in 2010 it was around 48, so I think right now we're creeping up to close to 50 million Americans. Now, one of the things I also wanted to mention is that it is okay if a family member or maybe they live in a residence or they have power of attorney. Basically, if a loved one or a family member or an employee that's taking care of them, they can call in for them. It helps if the person in question is maybe beside them, so they can speak on the phone for just a couple of minutes. But that's I think something that will reassure the elderly person calling in. Like if you have a son or a daughter or a nephew or a niece or a employee where you work with that that can help you, get them on the phone. No problem at all. They might just ask for, your identification, or they might say, oh, can I speak to, Greg? Greg, do you give Frank permission to, discuss and set up your Medicare? And most of the time, they'll be happy to do it. Every call I listen to, they're like, oh, yep, that's fine. No problem. I want, I'll give you some information and I'll, I'll make sure that, that Frank has my power of attorney, or Frank speaks for me, or whatever. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, so here's some crucial info, guys. And again, you are going to know more about Medicare than I am. I'm trying to give you a general idea as to how you want to run this campaign, try and combat low converting calls. Like I said before, this campaign is not for newcomers. This is a complex campaign. I would only recommend Medicare Supplement Coverage for those with experience or those who know the healthcare industry quite well, or those that have done their research. I don't want people just hopping on board this campaign if you've never run a pay-per-call offer. I just think, it's very competitive, it's complex, and I don't think it'll convert that well for you. Now, that being said, if you're an experienced partner or you've done your homework, if you say, no, Henry, I know exactly all about Medicare, I've done my research, I've got a good landing page which I think is clear and concise, not too confusing, reassuring, let me on this campaign. Perfect. I know a lot of people ask me, what are the best promotion types for every campaign? And I cannot answer that because it changes all the time. If I had to bet on which promotion type would excel with this kind of campaign, is likely SEO. Paid search is a little tricky, especially click to call, because you have to get across a lot of information. Now, I could be totally wrong. All you paid search partners are probably yelling at me being like, Henry, you have no idea what you're talking about. I know exactly what to say in my ad text to get people to call. Hey, that's just fine. Just keep in mind that you want to keep the target market in mind. So not a lot of them are probably going to be doing this on mobile devices. I saw a lot of landline calls when I listened to when I did my research a couple of days ago. We saw a lot of people over the age of 65 are calling in, probably not big proponents of social media. So definitely try and put yourself into the mindset of yourself. When you're 65 and you're wanting to, you have no idea what's going on with Medicare, you want to add a supplemental program, but you're not sure who to talk to, you'll probably type it into Google, and hopefully Google will spout out a number for you to call. So definitely something to keep in mind. I don't know the best promotion type, but I would wager that SEO is probably a good way to go. So, like I said before, callers are going to be connected to a brokerage specializing in selling Medicare supplement programs. There will be a pre-screening call, which usually lasts 3 to 5 minutes. They're going to ask them information like, what's your birthday, what's your name, and all that, and they're going to go through all that, and then in about 4 minutes or so, it does usually take some time. So you're already past the connect duration, guys. You don't even have to get through the pre-screener to get paid. But they're going to say, okay, I'm going to transfer you over to a live agent, a licensed agent that's going to be able to help you out with specific plans. Now, plan prices, from what I heard, range from, $29 a month to $78 a month. So it's basically a premium, or sort of an insurance premium they pay each month, to cover their drug costs, or in case there's an emergency with, their vision or their dental or something like that. It's not a bad idea, and the plans seem pretty affordable. Like I said, the ones I heard range from around $28 to $30 a month, and then on the higher end you can go as high as $75, and I'm sure you can go higher, guys. I'm sure you can go, way higher with those with special, really special needs or very expensive prescriptions and things like that. But that's basically what I heard. So they're going to try and sell them a plan for Medicare Parts C and D, and I'm just going to go into that in a little bit right now. Okay, so like I said, sorry, we're going backwards a little bit, going all over the place. The questions include the name, date of birth, address, zip code, all that. They are going to mention that, you don't have to give your medical information unless it's part of the plan. So I think that's really important to emphasize. Like, no one is going to force them to give up, your deep, dark medical secrets. Basically they're volunteering this information. The agents are not going to, coerce them or intimidate them into giving up, why do they need leg medication, or why do they need, skincare, all this stuff. They're not going to ask that. The person has to volunteer it in an effort to, get this Medicare plan. So keep that in mind. It's actually really weird. Some of them, and I've never seen this before, you guys may have heard this, but the agent will basically say, okay, I'm going to play a message here that's going to say that I have permission to call you back in case we get disconnected. And they're going to stay on the line with them, and it'll be this automated message saying, if you wish to continue with this call, and if you give the agent permission to call you back, press 1. If not, press 2. And almost all of them press 1 because the agent primes them and says, in order to do this, I just need your information. So it seems very on the up and up. It seems very, very compliant. And generally, guys, the more compliant a campaign is with more checks and balances, the more likely your call is going to convert because of the connect duration. So definitely keep that in mind. One of the things I also wanted to mention is repeat callers. You're probably going to get a few. From what I saw, some people will call back 3 or 4 times. Maybe they dialed into the IVR and they didn't understand, or they were confused, or maybe they got disconnected, or maybe they wanted to call back because they didn't have maybe the specific medical information that the agent requested. So try not to be dissuaded or disheartened rather from the number of repeat callers. And again, that's another reason why the conversion rate appears a little low, because you're going to have a lot of the same people calling in. So anything you can do to fight that, mention in your ad, this is only for new customers. Here's the Medicare customer service number and all that stuff. You want to keep that in mind. You don't want them calling in, 6 or 7 times. But seniors, they might. You never know. So like I said, we've already talked about the pre-screening, and then they're going to go on to a live agent. Okay, so what is Medicare? We talked a little bit about that earlier. Guys, make sure you do your research on what A, B, C, and D are. A and B, I believe, is already given to them. C and D covers, prescription drug plans. There's something called Medicare Advantage, Medicare Advantage plan. They want people calling in. It doesn't really matter if they're signing up for Medicare or they're not sure. They're going to be able to walk them through it. The agents were actually pretty patient from what I heard. But generally, the kind of, fundamentally breaking it down from a pay-per-call aspect, you're going to want people calling in that are interested in buying, Medicare supplement coverage plans. That's what they want. You're going to get some people that are information shopping, and that's fine. Basically what we want is people interested enough to ask the prices and them, hopefully purchasing a plan. I would probably recommend that this campaign takes one more step of research than normal campaigns do. Make sure you know Medicare inside and out. Make sure you play around with your keywords if you're doing paid search. Make sure you test out different verbiage, because again, these are not your typical customers calling in. This is a complex campaign with people that don't really know all that much about what they're calling in about. So definitely something to keep in mind. And as we get to crucial info number 4, make sure you check the negative keyword list in the campaign overview. Don't identify yourself as a specific insurance broker, and don't bid on those. So don't pretend to be like SilverScript or anything like that, because people are going to call in and then they're going to be like, oh, I want to speak to my agent at SilverScript. It was this extension. I heard a couple of calls where people were saying that, I received a voicemail saying that, my Medicare was going to be canceled or anything like that. Guys, we absolutely cannot have any calls like that, and you know it. And I imagine the people that are attending this webinar know it, and it's probably one person ruining it for everybody, but we can't have those kinds of calls. Don't tell them to call in. No outbound calls, guys. There has to be people searching for this stuff. You know that. Why am I saying this? Just to remind you. One of the types of calls we want to avoid is they've lost their Medicare card and want another card. That's the kind of stuff, customer service stuff, we want to avoid. So don't promote like, hey, did you lose your Medicare card? No problem. Call in this number and we'll give you a new one. On the contrary, they need their cards because the people are going to be asking them what their Medicare number is. And lastly, it's not Medicaid. And again, I know non-Americans are going to be like, Medicare, Medicaid, holy cow, this campaign might not be for me. But guys, there's so much information out there. It's a federal government program. This campaign isn't, but Medicare is, that you're going to, not have a hard time finding all the tidbits you need to make this a successful campaign. Those that are making it work, keep that, keep doing what you're doing because it's working. But a lot of you, conversion rates are around, 5 or 10%. We're just seeing way too many people get stuck in the IVR. So I want you to do a test call and see what you think. If you don't like the IVR, let me know. We can get an IVR recorded for you. Don't worry, I will not be the IVR voice. We have Marie and Laura are doing IVR calls. Taylor and John have good, strong voices that have yielded good results and no charge. Just ask us. Henry, you might say, I want to try Medicare Supplement Coverage. Listen to the IVR. I think I got a better idea. I'd like to try this script. Chances are 99 times out of 100 we'll say, okay, great, no problem. We'll record that and hopefully get it, set up for you very, very soon. Definitely something to keep in mind. And that's about it, guys. Again, this could be an hour-long webinar, but that's not what the marketing plans are for. It's meant to be a concise, quick glance as to, what I've been listening to and what I think works. And hopefully I've been able to be excited.